Nobody knows how OpenAI does compute. Do you? Do I? No. AI is doing things and people as in humans want to know what's happening. AI is going really fast. What is the tip of it? Nobody really knows. Mostly we see the side of it. End of it, the tail end of it, we see the most. If it's a human doctor, there is like, okay, you are responsible. Now explain to us, what did you do? How are you going to ask the AI?
OpenAI spent billions of dollars per year. But in the same time, when DeepSeek was announced, there's about 5 million and totally less amount of employees. What's the difference? But I think approach is the same.
So this is where the challenge comes in, okay? AI is not just going to impact you, me, nation states, how our future will look like, but still there are open problems and we don't have all the answers we need. Do I enjoy what I do? Will I survive this quest? Am I willing to put in the effort to cross the barriers?
Hi everyone, I'm your host Kirill Ivanov. Today my guest Dr. Anish Mohammed, data scientist advising in different fields, early advising XRP and also co-founder and CTO of Panther Protocol. Today we'll speak about a rapidly emerging topic of AI agents and AI overall. Watch this video till the end.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be back again.
What's happening in the world of AI right now?
AI is doing things and people as in humans want to know what's happening. Nobody knows how OpenAI does compute. Do you?
Yeah.
Do I?
No.
So this is one bit. Then there's a question of explainability, right? Yeah. So you ask ChatGPT, who is Kirill? They could give you very nice answers. Sometimes it might give you very interesting answers.
Yep.
If you try to find out how it came to that conclusion, that's the explainability bit. And then there's this authenticity of data in that sense, which is like a very well-known thing that everybody knows.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the current society we live in, we see people making massive claims. I say, I own your shirt, and you say, you own my shirt. Yeah, it's in a bit of a problem, right?
Yeah.
So this is like the authenticity of data.
You mentioned also about ZK and how ZK can be related to AI and works together.
I'll give you a bit of an idea, right?
Yep.
Remember we were talking about I asked about Kirill and ChatGPT gave me some stuff that we called it explainability in that sense, right? It can decompose into two pieces. Let's think about the verifiability piece first, right? So you can actually do proofs of the calculator without ever revealing to anybody what was calculated, whether the calculation was right or not.
Okay.
Remember old experiment, zero knowledge thing? You walk into a room, you and I walk into this room and I say, I have the ability to escape from this room. This room only has one door.
Yeah.
And you are the verifier. I'm proving it to you, right?
Okay.
My claim is I can escape from this room without using the door, right? The same thing applies, right? After 5 minutes, I'm sat outside, it's true. The same thing applies for computational verification or whatever the calculator does. That is zero knowledge. Essentially what it means is you can publish that all the calculations done by this calculator is valid, but nobody in the world knows what the calculator was doing.
Yeah.
Okay? That is verifiability. Now in explainability, you can tie things together. And you can use maybe some other cryptographic primitives like trusted execution environments along with ZK. So trusted execution environment is very trivial, right? All this does is it makes sure or gives you the assurances that nothing has changed. Right? Very simple. When you sign a contract, literally you put a signature, right? That's a physical signature.
Yeah.
That implies you can't change this.
Yeah.
The same thing when you do it digitally, that's called a digital signature, right? Many have digital signature of everything on a machine, and that is called attestation. And when you have a device that does that, it's typically the device is called TEE, Trusted Execution Environment. And the device, the small thing is called TPM, Trusted Platform Module, right?
Yeah.
It's normally sat on machines. So for example, I'll give you an example why I'm saying all this to you. So Nvidia actually has TPMs or TEEs available on their H100s and A100s on the backend, right? So they can do some of the things. And as I said, ZK, a lot of the ZK, you can actually use GPUs to do acceleration. So there you go. The Japanese bullet train?
Yep.
You hardly ever see the front of it. You only see the middle part of it and the last part of it.
Yeah.
Because unless you have been stood in front of it for a long time, if you stand that long, you probably won't see anything else after that.
Right.
It'll run over you in that sense.
Okay.
Just kidding, right? Because the train lines, the Japanese train lines, the bullet train is straight. There's no bends, and it doesn't there are no crossings, right? So what I'm kind of saying is like AI is going really fast. What is the tip of it? Nobody really knows. Mostly we see the side of it because it's like as we go past, we see more of it. And the end of it, the tail end of it, we see the most, right?
Yeah.
We get an opportunity, like a glance of the front and a bit of a view of the side and always the tail, right?
Yeah.
So the thing I can say to you easily, since we last spoke, a couple of interesting things have happened. Number one was this real surge from open source, in the sense like, DeepSeek.
Like Chinese LLMs.
DeepSeek, right, okay. So DeepSeek essentially is a combination of distillation. Which essentially means like you can always think of LLMs as being very, very large, multidimensional, sparse matrices, right? And you could always have a compression of that to a smaller matrix, right? It's like a much more denser, smaller matrix.
Did you heard about Manus AI?
Sorry?
Did you heard about...
that's an agent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we will get to that, right? That's the next piece.
Okay.
Right? First piece, one piece at a time. So literally what happens is like, imagine, you are a very well-known chef, right? And you have a recipe, like a whole bunch of recipes of things. And when you sell food, like you literally give like the recipes as well. So, I am somebody who's very novice, right? And I want to figure out what the Japanese recipes are. Effectively, what I could do is order a bunch of this Japanese food from you, and I get the food and I get the recipe and I can test this, right? So kind of you could think of it this way, like, OpenAI has this massive model and it has an API. Other people can actually run.
We don't have understanding how they operate.
It doesn't matter. Remember, the menu comes out with this. Like, what they operate doesn't relevant for us because like we are using it to train our model. Right? So effectively we use them to bootstrap our model. So I have a very large model. We create a smaller model. We use them to train our model. That's kind of loosely speaking the way of thinking, right? I'm not saying this is exactly what they did. That's lots of mathematical techniques that are used. But in summary, what they managed to do is like they gain like a few orders of magnitude of advantage. So advantage has pretty interesting implications. First, it's the fact that like, if you look at OpenAI, they had hundreds of thousands of H100s, or A100, mostly H100s, right? And these guys had a very few of them, right? Apparently what they say, they spent like $5 million to train the whole thing out, right? Orders of at least 2+ orders or 2 to 3 orders of magnitude difference, and also the time it took for them to actually train as well, right? On an average, if you look at the earlier models, as we get closer and closer, meaning closer to reality now, in that sense of speaking, we have less of information on how much time it takes for OpenAI to actually train their model. So we can hear some of it. I would strongly recommend, like, if you're that interested in the OpenAI thing, there's I brought a bunch of books for you. So, in case, your audience.
It's like lecture.
I need to help people out rather than turning up and talking shit to people, give them some guidance. So, this is like it's called Supremacy and AI Chat and all this crap. But it's a pretty interesting book. It's worth a read if you're interested in the story of OpenAI and how they got to where they got to.
Yeah, I think you can give recommendations in the end. What do you think? Can anyone truly to stay neutral to AI in 2025? Or we all involved in this field?
Yeah, I mean, like, we are always, in loosely speaking, it's like if you are driving a car, I mean, not an electric car, a normal car, there's a smoke coming out of the other end in that sense, and we are polluting everywhere. That's even if it's electric, we are still polluting. We don't see the pollution right now, but the same thing is happening. Every action you have is you have some data that's coming out, and you're also ingesting data or information. So, whether we know it or we don't know it, either we use it directly or indirectly. Other people who give us services use it directly or indirectly. You might be buying something on a website. Instead of you talking to a human, you're now talking to an agent. The agent is an LLM. So here you go.
Yeah, I think sometimes people think about AI is it so far, but in some certain ways, like AI already integrated and incorporated in some specific tools. They already used.
You probably are using a lot of them every day. Like, if you ever make, like, pretty much all the service agents and chatbots that are there, if you talk to Talabat, given we are here, I'm pretty reasonably sure that some of the pieces of the Talabat has been automated.
They also use AI or like some type of machine learning
some type of machine learning solutions, and like the more faster ones will actually have like later LLMs in that sense. So you could just ask questions; they will give you feedback instead of advisors giving you advice. You're talking to an LLM, which is giving you the advice.
And what do you think for a regular person? Should they develop some skills related to AI?
This is the question that one needs to answer for oneself, right? Like, do I enjoy what I do? Will I survive this quest? Am I willing to put in the effort to cross the barrier? So, like, if you think you're one of those people who want to always add value, like, this is this question of like, do I put in effort? Can I rent seek? Like, if you believe that you always want to add value and continue want to add value, then absolutely you need to literally, try, learn some AI, get into the game. So, because like if you were competing, imagine this is an Olympic 100-meter race.
Yeah.
Like the tiny competition, that shaving, whatever that is for swimming as well. Like, there was ban for the things that you can wear, right?
Yeah.
Because this is tiny. So that's the real world. Like,
Our world is really big competition.
Yeah, very much a competition for resources. It's resources, attention, and other things. So it's like, sometimes it's just about retention.
It means to stay competitive, people should to learn how to use AI.
Absolutely.
In work or in daily life.
Yeah, so in this podcast has to have like all these animations. Otherwise, when you compete with others.
And what do you think was most likely careers be complemented by developments in AI?
So, that's a hard one. Pretty much anyone and everything could be complemented in one sense of speaking. So, if you are in this place where there's large amounts of data, pretty much assume that's going to be definitely impacted. Given text to audio, text to video, text to everything. Think of any of those things which is creative. We actually want to do any of those things that will all be automated in that sense.
What are your thoughts about like healthcare, like medicine or financial technology sector?
Yeah, I would add some caveats to that. Okay. One of the things with healthcare, and so the recommendation I have for you on this is this 20% doctor included by Vinod Khosla. This is an old piece of thing he wrote like 2011, but it's like kind of gives you like clear idea of what he was thinking and other people in the Bay Area were thinking. The progress hasn't been as fast as we thought it would be because of the regulatory thing. Remember, start of the conversation, we were talking about verifiability and explainability. These are like super important. So,
because it's a really sensitive
aspects. Yeah, absolutely. Like, if I misdiagnose, right? You just have fever. You can have differential diagnosis of 10 things. I misdiagnose you for something else. You get treated and it was completely wrong. Who will ask you and how will ask you?
Who will wrong?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is like, if it's a human doctor, there is like, okay, you are responsible. Now explain to us, what did you do? How are you going to ask the AI? Like, okay, explain to us, well, how did you get to this conclusion? Right? You remember, this is literally what I was asking you. Oh, we were talking about.
But we heard about like term like a black box when we don't understand how AI make decisions.
Yeah, I mean, like, so the black box models are interesting, but black box models, when it comes to, say, things like healthcare, might not be as interesting, right? Yeah. So let's invert the question and ask this obvious. If you are an insurer and I have a black box, will you be willing to insure my black box?
I don't know.
Oh, that's that. Most likely not, because you don't know what the risk you're underwriting. This is exactly what the problem is, right?
Yeah.
So that there is like a very long, this is in the 80s, there was this thing where software bug actually caused overexposure of a patient for radiotherapy. Okay. It's a well-known case. So there was a whole bunch of things in software this has happened, right? And I'm pretty sure in AI, the same thing is going to happen at some point in time. And when that happens, how do you fix it and how do you figure out? Those things require the pieces I mentioned, verifiability and explainability, among other things, a whole bunch of other things. Like there are biases question, right? Like, you remember Microsoft, what happened to that thing in like 24 hours, become very racist. The AI became very racist. Yeah, these are all things that you probably don't want. I don't know, but you might want or you don't want. My views, we don't want it.
When I mentioned about Manus AI, you told us that it's like AI agent. And by your opinion, what the AI agents is exactly?
So this is where the challenge comes in. Okay, so
Let's figure out.
Yeah. I mean, let me walk you through what this means. It's like the definition of an agent is like it has some autonomous capability and some decision making possibility. So typically, what most of the agents we see is like a Python script or Python code, right? In the backend, there's some LLM running somewhere. A lot of them is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And so you have something like LangChain, which is like a Python library that allows you to. So effectively, you ask a question, it interacts with you, and the backend is asking questions to ChatGPT. So this piece of code has this ability to interact with an LLM and make decisions given the inputs given to it. Yeah. So that's like you can almost think of it like something that has ability to take inputs, evaluate it, and give outcomes, right? That's kind of what an agent would kind of
I noticed a lot of people are really interested how to build own AI agents, and it's possible for everyone.
I believe it's almost reached a point that everybody could actually build an agent. So as I was describing...
Using just no-code solutions?
There are almost Replit and a bunch of other ones actually allow you I'm not saying everything could be doable.
Yeah.
Like, most of the things are doable.
In the easiest way.
Yeah. So it's like you drag and drop things and say yes. And then, like, in one sense of speaking, right, if you use Claude or other tools, right, you could just describe what you want, right, just in text.
Yep.
And it will actually give you the Python script, right? Or you can just ask, ChatGPT or Claude the question as well. It'll tell you exactly what is happening. You can copy paste your errors and it'll fix it, right? So in theory, even if you knew nothing, if you are capable of doing copy paste and ask the right questions.
What about the accuracy of coding these solutions, these LLMs?
The thing you need to recognize is like...
Because sometimes I just ask regular questions, not so deep, and sometimes I see like ChatGPT or others give me like answer with hallucinations from wrong answers.
Yeah, so the problem of hallucinations is a non-trivial problem. It's just the fact that you need to add some randomness to the whole thing, right? So when you add randomness, sometimes randomness goes off the kilt, and that's when you have true hallucinations. But like, if you think about a normal transformer model kind of thing where you're looking at the probability of tokens and predicting the next token in that sense, is very bounded. So every time you run it, you'll get the same result. You probably never see this happening. So there is some randomness added to it, and they call it temperature in that sense, right?
Temperature, right? It's about creativity.
Yeah. Creativity is just randomness. So think of creativity as randomness, right? So nice randomness, not like weird randomness. Nice randomness gives you good results. Bad randomness gives you bad results. Bad randomness is an example of hallucination. That's what I would say.
I have a question regarding AI agents.
Sure.
So can you give some examples of AI agents that really helping businesses and people in daily life now?
Oh, sure. I mean, you could do very simple things, right? So there are enough of bots that people have even in Telegram. So remember that one when you said to me you want to actually, have a podcast? We said yes. There could be an agent running in your Telegram. The Telegram will be integrated with your, Google Calendar. Off you go. You say that, I say yes. We agree to time. The bot will actually recognize what's being said, take that up, put it into calendar. We get 2 invites on both the sides. Job done.
It's easy example.
It's a very easy example. Just an example of what we had to do now. When I talk to somebody, my bot is listening to what I'm saying and doing what anything needs to be done. So, I could do the same for audio as well if you really wanted to. But the question then becomes like, given all this data is available in various places, do you really want everybody to know everything you do? You might not want to. So this is a question you need to answer.
If I understand right, that any person can build own AI agent without some technical background, just using drag and drop tools?
Absolutely. The no-code, low-code, no-code tools.
And
N8N and things like that. So Cursor, N8N.
What recommendation would you give, like in sense of frameworks or tools for building AI agents?
So I wouldn't be able to give you Because I don't make a living doing this.
Okay.
I only do this for fun.
Okay.
As in, like, my interest, as I described to you.
I think your fun is like extremely huge. It's difficult.
So, my core interest, a research interest and practical interest is providing verifiability, explainability, and providing the tooling for humanity as a whole. And that's my next quest. Like, literally, if I'm done with Panther, that's what I'm planning to do next. So for me, I use the agents. The NA10 thing and Cursor to me looks pretty good.
Okay.
I have been using LangChain for a long while, so AutoGPT and LangChain and Pinecone and things like that for like probably more than 18 months now. So yeah. I'm kind of a halfway house. It's like, I built a lot of the things already. So for me, I see not much value in using it. So I use it just to see it works. And then I go back to the things I know for sure it works really well.
But you bring these books. What's this books about?
Yes. So the thing was like, given you mentioned you're going to ask me questions, I wanted to give you like a balanced interpretation of the state of affairs. And I was pretty sure that you're going to talk to me about ChatGPT and OpenAI. So I wanted that to be clear. Supremacy, the book will give you a very good idea. And then this guy, Aravind, I've known him like 20 years, give or take, 2006. Yeah, pretty much 20 years. So he wrote this book called Snake Oil. Right, okay. It's like a cynical take on the whole thing.
Okay.
So if your audience is like of curious mind, as I would describe, and they want to hear both sides of the equation, this is definitely one of those books which would actually help you.
We put names of these books in below.
And the other three books was literally, I was expecting you're going to ask me, if somebody who has very little background in mathematics wants to get into this game, where would I start? Like one of the books that I would strongly recommend is like, as the title describes, 100 pages book. To me, I'm too lazy, so typically I'm after things like this. So 100-page large language models is a pretty good one. This guy has two books. It's a series of two books. First one is on ML, and second one is on large language models.
It's really good that this book is not so big.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally why I picked it up, right? The other two books I have is like, this is the second one. I have the first version as well. This is like if you are somebody who is used to tinkering with machine learning models for a while, and then this gives you like pretty much hands-on understanding of how you could build models. And this is like a pretty good one. This guy, Jay Amar, I think that's how I pronounce his name. He has a YouTube channel, pretty much explains a lot of the AI stuff pretty well, and a pretty good book if you don't have very heavy mathematical understanding, reasonable understanding of like language, some language like Python. So this was like, when I talk to you, at least I give you some pointers, balanced ones.
Okay.
Give you like a bit of an idea about where, ChatGPT and OpenAI came from. I also wanted to bring two other books to give you two other pieces that's very fundamental to this whole game. One is called Chip Wars, which is about like the semiconductor manufacturing. Okay. And the other one was The Coming Wave, kind of describing the paradigm shift that's happening because of all these things happening. But like to me, this was like, okay, I can only carry a small amount of books, so let me get these books.
I think this books is enough to start understanding in AI.
Yeah, no, this is it's more a question of not understanding AI. You need to understand AI with the context, right? AI is not just going to impact you, me, but nation states, how our future will look like, how you and I will work, how you and I will make money, or how, I don't know. Like everything, every facet of our life is going to be impacted by this. So I wanted the people who listen to your podcast, it's definitely are curious people, to give them this heads up, guys, girls, just open your eyes. See this thing.
I also curious in your opinion. I guess a lot of people in current trend in AI think about what they can do, especially like some entrepreneurs or like small tech guys.
Yeah.
And where do you see the biggest opportunities for like small creators or startups to start build AI agents that will solve problems?
Yeah, so the thing I would say is like, if you have some niche skills, right? So if you were to look at large language models and the size, the amount of tokens and the size of the parameters you have and the accuracy you can improve in that sense, and we've reached the knee of the curve, which that means it's like even if you increase it, it doesn't increase. So now what is you're left with is like specialized models. So you might be able to remember we were having this conversation of DeepSeek, right?
Yep.
So you could think of it and deploy it in a specialized model in that sense. You go, you know what? I'm going to take this, build a specialized model for something you are the world's best expert. So imagine podcast and marketing a podcast, and you want to actually build a model to do that. And then when you train your model with all the data you have, your data, then that model will tell you how best you could leverage yourself. There you go. So this is like finding that niche where you have this advantage in terms of data and expertise is the key. Like imagine you have Perplexity or something else running and you are doing interactive version, you're asking questions. Some of the models actually do the reasoning and you can see the reasoning. You could think of like doing the reasoning yourself. And when you do the reasoning yourself, is the answer really tailoring it as if you were the person giving an answer to somebody else? So that's where the leverage comes in. So what you're doing now is like when your customer asks your LLM the question, it behaves more like you, gives them the answer that you would have given. And that actually differentiates. If you could differentiate yourself from other people, your AI could definitely differentiate itself from other people's AI.
What a part of a specific language models?
Okay, yeah.
Because it's a bit like...
Okay, so it might be really hard to have a foundational model for yourself, but you might be able to do some amount of tweaking on a model that's pre-existing. So for example, if you're just using your ChatGPT for a while, and now you can ask, who am I, right? It's going to give you like a bunch of stuff. It gives you the feel that if it's giving you stuff and it really differentiates and recognizes you as you. Yes, there is some training you could definitely do to any model where you are being recognized and there's output is different. If you ask a question and it looks like everybody on the street, then that's probably not a great place to be.
Is it really important to understand how AI exactly works? We spoke about explainability, right?
Yeah.
Especially for the developers when they do solutions.
Not just developers in that sense. You were the one who brought this up. You talked about healthcare. Right? That's a very important one, right?
Yeah.
Imagine we have doctors being replaced by LLMs and you have a chat with a doctor bot, let's call it that, right?
Okay.
So, you want to understand, why you were given a diagnosis and, you want to understand why that diagnosis was happened, why you were given a medicine or you were prescribed a surgery. And the robot just making this up now, okay? We haven't reached a place where robot would take you down and do the surgery. Not there yet. But in a day, not too far future, it's not impossible, right? So then you want to know why the hell did they do the surgery, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the reason.
As I know, you also was involved in developing ethical concern.
Yeah.
And why should we care about ethics for AI?
Oh, wow. That's an important question. So, let's think this through in a very simple sense, right? Remember, let's take the doctor example, right? So imagine there are some biases, right?
Okay.
So in this world that we are in, this is an imaginary world, the people who have orange skin color, I'm just making this up, are known to be, always consuming lots of alcohol.
Right.
And the people with green skin color is considered, people who are very healthy and doing exercise. When you walk into a doctor's office, they look at your skin color and make a bunch of assumptions, right? So your treatment is biased, right? You understand the bias question now?
Okay.
So now just because the skin color is there and there is a correlation, doesn't the causation, right?
Okay.
So you really want to understand the biases and you want to be sure the biases are, corrected, right? So given you walked into a doctor's office and you just happen to have whatever orange skin color, you might have all the things that's showing that you have a disease. But because you have orange skin color, the doctor is saying, you know what, I don't think you have this problem. You're just hallucinating, right? That is a problem, right? And it can also be that the reverse is true, right?
Yeah.
So all of that is biases. And you want to have more closer to reality rather than what other people think because of bias.
And how we can exactly give understanding in AI of these biases?
Understanding AI biases is like a big open research problem. There are lots been progress. So it's like in the last, I would say, 10, 15 years that I've been interested in this space.
Okay.
There's been quite a bit of progress, but still there are open problems and we don't have all the answers we need.
But how this process is going?
So in general, when you think about models, what you tend to do is like you try understand, model biases by having cohorts of models sometimes. So, in general, you can think of the normal statistical methods, and like there are other things you could do as well. The simplest way to think about it is like, imagine you have 5 models. You're trying 5 models with 5 different sample sets, and then you run it. You see the variation in the output, and then you get what the curve looks like. Now you could take the median out of it. It will be most likely closer to the reality than assuming, I'm just making 5 because it's a small number, but it should be a large number. So you can actually take the bell or normal curve, and then you can actually, take the middle of the curve. It should have all the biases to the largest degree removed. And there are lots of techniques of that sort, but I'm just giving you some intuition. So now, how could be done.
Okay. And you mentioned about also interesting thing. It's like
verifiable computing. So I was describing you walk into a shop and in the shop, the guy who sells stuff to you, you just want to buy water. In Dubai, everybody buys water. You go to the shop and you want to buy water and you want to have, instead of 1 bottle, you want to buy 6 bottles of water, So 1 bottle costs X, if it's 6X, but the guy has a calculator and he gives it to you and you do the numbers and whatever that comes at, you have to give him, right? So you want to be sure that he is not fooling you, right? That's his verifiability, right? And, if you write 6 into X on a piece of paper, it's $1 or 180. 6 into 1 is 6. You could do that on a piece of paper. 6 into 1, 6. Versus you have your calculator, you do 6 into 1, should give you 6. This is verifiability. You do in 2 places, both of them should be the same, right?
Yeah.
And this is literally what it is,
Okay. It's almost easy.
Yeah, straightforward. No magical stuff. No.
By the way, do you know how LLMs was created and continuing improving? What's the key principles?
Okay, I'll give you like an intuition of what that is. So in 2017, there was a paper called "Attention is All You Require."
It all started from 2017.
2017 paper is a key
non-profit OpenAI company.
Yeah. So I think it was not OpenAI; it was a Google. So these guys were all on Google, right? So it just happens that one of the authors of the paper is a friend of mine called Ilya. He's like a co-founder of Near Protocol. Ilya Potomkin, not the other Ilya. Okay, just 2 Ilyas. Like these 2 Ilyas have a outsized influence on the influence of AI, right? So the other Ilya is Jeffrey Hinton's student and the guy who co-founded OpenAI. Right? Okay. So they wrote this paper out. This paper was kind of describing how given a string of tokens could be any text. How could you actually predict the next one, right? So it was like, there was a whole bunch of matrix multiplications and stuff like that you need to do to get some intuitions of what the next token should be. And they started using it. And so, different sort of people started using it. And in late 2020s, in somewhere 2021.
Not so far ago.
Yes, not so far ago, 4 years ago. The people in OpenAI suddenly realized this is super, super helpful and it really gives us results. So they had a lot of false starts and they tried a lot of things at 2014, 2015. Then they started out, they didn't really do very well. And like only after 2020, 2021, they actually got some real results. And then it was a case of like, bigger models, better models, and improve it. So if you look at the first version of ChatGPT, and you could actually, if you go back and you can actually run it, and you can actually, because the parameter sizes are small, you could actually run it. And then they became larger and larger and larger, and now we have like enormous sized models.
As I know, OpenAI spent billions of dollars per year, but in the same time, when DeepSeek was announced, they spoke about 5 million and totally less amount of employees. What's the difference? But I think approach is the same.
So the thing is, like, firstly, OpenAI is like a massive warehouse in that sense, and they buy and store everything, right? So you need to think about, like, you can loosely think about this being like the Amazon kind of mechanism, right?
Okay.
So, when Amazon wants to buy a book, Amazon never has a book in stock in that sense of speaking, right?
Okay.
They will source it, right? And if you are like a physical bookshop owner, you have to have the book in the shelf.
Yes.
Right? So you could loosely think of this in a mental model sense, like, okay, OpenAI, very large physical book owner.
Okay.
And in DeepSeek, they are like the Amazons of the world. They shifted the paradigm. They run this thing. They go and ask, right? So what they do is like, when you put in an order for something, what they're going to do? At the back end, they're going to ask, hey, hello, do you happen to have a book? Can I buy the book? And OpenAI says, yes, and I physically ship it to these guys, right?
They was trained by
this is literally what you should think about this way, right? Like, so imagine there are most popular 100 books that are there. You could almost ask those questions and keep all the books with you, whereas OpenAI has to globally source everything and store everything, right?
But what about Gemini or Claude?
So I don't know much about like the internals of Gemini or Claude in that sense. I've spent a reasonable time trying to understand a bit about the OpenAI framework and mostly the large language framework, OpenLlama and other things of that sort. So I suspect everybody has learned from what has happened, because like there is some techniques from reinforcement learning that was actually also being used. So, when reinforcement learning was used, it was very effective in solving some of the problems. So, for example, I don't know if you remember DeepMind. They actually defeated the Go champion. That was pretty much Q learning and other kind of thing, which is reinforcement learning. So all of that was combined. So you had a large language model being used with other techniques being applied on top, so resulting in improvements and having distillation, which is essentially what I was describing, like Amazon versus a physical bookstore with a very large warehouse. So literally that's what happened. Like, when you so-called stocks of books is very tiny, the total amount of money you need to spend on stocking those books is small. When your stocks of books are very large, the total amount of money you need to spend to stock those books is very high. So that's the easiest way to think about this. So DeepSeek only stocks a very small number of books, but it's the largest number of books, the highest probability that you will be able to get a book that you ask immediately from DeepSeek.
And what is the most excitement about AI in the coming years?
I don't have a crystal ball, and it's very, very hard. Like, there are few things that's interesting and that I would like to look out for. So one of the things that I'm most interested is like BCI, right? Brain-computer interface. So, I have been talking about it for a very long time. So I've given a talk at the Rise of AI conference in 2016 in Berlin, kind of describing the challenges one would have once you have BCIs. So those things are going to be real very soon. Right now, you could think of your iPhone.
In a few words, what it is?
Oh, so brain-computer interfacing. What it essentially means is like it's in your brain. So you are a brain-computer interface for your brain, right? So, my hand is represented in the brain. My tongue is represented in my brain. My eyes are represented in my brain. And when I talk, it's like, parts of the brain, motor part of the brain is asking parts of this to give some noises, and that's how we talk, right? So this is a BCI, right? So when a direct connection to the human brain happens, then we will actually have a lot more things doable, right? So instead of you and I talking, I walk in, I unplug some of this, plug it somewhere. I don't know. Have you seen Ghost in the Shell? No.
I'm not sure.
All right. It's an anime. Yeah, right. So it is a movie, I'll say. Right. You should definitely watch them, because like that will give you a clear idea of what you should expect very soon. So right now, most of our abilities are constrained by our body, our body's ability to do things. The speed at which I could talk to you, the speed at which I could read, the memory I can have, the amount of food I could eat. So my energy is constrained by my physical existence. Whereas if I have a BCI and I could probably outsource compute and do things, then my physical constraints might be removed.
Yeah, but it's really excitement and impressive of what can happen. But it happened in the future, in the nearest future.
It is very possible it can happen in near future. It's like, we are slowly and steadily moving towards it. There isn't much of a gap that I can see that's there. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens soon.
Okay, and for beginners, like, what's the recommendation you can give? Because we spoke about like overall and in general, but for someone who want to start like from like
nothing,
from the nothing experience, and because some of people like 30 or 40 without some tech understanding.
I like the way I would describe it is, remember, I was if you are just super curious, the Supremacy book will give you the short history of what has actually happened.
Okay.
And sometimes, just understanding some of the things will get you started. Then if you are somebody who is kind of, a bit more serious, in the 100-page book would be a very good place to start, right? Like, I'm just, I consider myself very lazy. Like, I can't
say. So.
Yeah, well, you could have an opinion, but, so the way I say it is like, it very much depends on how much time you have, how much of effort you're willing to put in. And the other part of the equation is like, how much of help are you going to get from the LLMs around the world?
It depends what I can take from it.
Yes. So it's a collaborative effort. It's pretty hard to put one line, but what I would say is like, there's one of the science fiction author who said this, which is like, the future is unevenly distributed. What that means is some bits of the future is already there, and some bits of the future will come later. So Neil Stephenson, he said this, the future is unevenly distributed.
Okay, good thing. Thank you very much
for
coming.